What you are about to hear is part of the Podgods Network. If you have a problem with anything you hear, please write it in an email and go fuck yourself. Enjoy the show.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
Salty Language presents The Enthusiast.
Hey enthusiasts, this is Bryan. Joining me today as normal is Tony.
Hello there.
And joining us today is Jason Anarchy.
I'm not Game designer?
Game designer? Yeah, I was just going to say, I didn't ask you your title ahead of time.
Hey, everybody.
For, the main one we have listed is Drinking Quest. Do you have, I assume have you designed other games too?
Yeah, I've designed 4 Drinking Quest games. I've got a game coming out next month called Haiku Warrior. It's kind of the opposite of Drinking Quest, so instead of being funny because it's loud and obnoxious, it's funny because it's quiet and introspective and told entirely through haiku.
Nice.
So yeah, that'll be my 5th game, and then next year I've got 2 coming out, and then so far in the works 2 the year after that too. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh wow, sounds like you have a very full plate. Yeah,
I've been doing a game a year for the last 5 years, and it's just been a nonstop 80-hour a week job. I self-publish, so that's the bulk of the work. But I'm like, well, why don't I double the work and do 2 games a year? So let's see how that goes. So it's it just basically when there's just a great idea, you have to roll with it, and it's when it's something funny like Drinking Quest, it's a drinking game and a tabletop RPG. It's a ridiculous mashup. But it's like, no, I can be the guy to pull this off in a good way, kind of thing. So,
awesome.
I just get these silly comedy ideas, and that's always my comfort zone. And I just kind of get obsessed with it. I'm like, all right, what's the best way to do this? And I kind of pound it out, and I get it out into the world.
Right. See, I used to play tabletop RPGs a lot, and we would just drink just because,
Yeah, I figured I couldn't be the only one that was doing that every weekend.
But as a mechanic, Now we're talking.
Awesome.
And I've read websites, seen some video and whatnot. Like a buddy of mine has Drunk Quest, which is kind of like Munchkin, which I'm not a huge Munchkin fan, but Drunk Quest about kills me every time I play it. It's like frat boy drinking.
Yeah, it's much more of a drinking game. Drinking Quest is like a 50-50 mashup of tabletop RPG and then drinking game. It was Drunk Quest. The name is similar, but they're both total kind of opposites about how they go about it. So,
right.
It's I was coming out with the second game, and someone was like, "Oh, there's a Kickstarter for this game, Drunk Quest." And I checked it out, and it looked cool. Just similar names but different executions, and they're good dudes. They link to us on their site and everything, so that's always nice to have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I just know the liver damage is excessive. It seems like with your game, it's going to be you can actually remember the game afterwards.
Yeah,
which I like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the holy shit moment with Drinking Quest, where it was like, okay, yeah, these mechanics are going to work, and I know I can release this game, was basically, the challenge was always, what's a 50-50 mix, because that's kind of, the promise of the game. How do I deliver on that? And it was the moment where every game is divided into 4 quests, and it's about a 2-hour game. If you have to chug your drink more than once in the same quest, you just do 3 swigs, and then that way everybody can finish the game. Nobody goes to the hospital. It's a nice moderate amount kind of thing. But nearly every other drinking game is just drink as much as you can as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And there's no real game part of it. But besides just drink a lot really fast. So that was a good way to pace it out and kind of it was more chill at home on a Friday night with a few friends rather than like an insane kind of frat boy game. So
and it makes sense too, because when you're getting annihilated playing a game, it's trying to remember rules after you're past that point and stuff. It's it kind of defeats the point of even playing. I mean, you might as well just play quarters or beer pong or something like that if you're going to do that. So
I've had so many nights where I just set up a game, I buy a new game, I'm really excited about it. And you read the instructions, and you set it up, and you do that for 4 hours, and then the night ends, and you don't start. And it's I even wrote a song about that. And I really wanted to make a game that, the instructions are just a double-sided one sheet. As far as an RPG goes, it's dirt simple, but as far as a drinking game goes, it's quite complex. So it's there's kind of a fun mix there. But yeah, the instructions are just a double-sided one sheet, and it's meant to be learned and kind of, everyone gets going quickly, and you can play the game in the same night.
Yeah, that's what I read. I was reading reviews for the game and stuff, and it was, pretty amazing how everybody pointed that out. Like, they were like, this game was easy to pick up. You don't have to spend the whole night trying to figure out the rules. You can, the first time it's out of the box, everybody pretty much gets the grasp of it and can play it.
Yeah.
Which is nice. A lot of the games we've played, like, you have to play 2 or 3 times to get the full kind of range of strategy and just the rules themselves. So that definitely is appealing. Yeah.
And it's like, there's those kind of games are great, and there's definitely a market for it. But at some point in my collection, I just got a stack of more games than I can reasonably ever learn and actually play. And if you're into tabletop games, it's probably not an uncommon first world problem there. But it was like, I think I'm gonna, I'd rather have more simple games, and it'd have to be something pretty out there to make me pick up something, it's $100 game with 10,000 pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. Right.
Well, I guess what's your favorite tabletop game then, or I guess your favorite one that you're playing currently, maybe?
Yeah, all of my. Okay, well, I can do current and I can do all time.
All time.
Right. My biggest influences are really obscure, and nobody seems to care about them. So basically, when I came out with the first Drinking Quest, I was just straight up really, really out of touch with the tabletop scene. I didn't go to any websites, I didn't go to any conventions, I didn't have people that wanted to try new games, things like that. I just picked up random games throughout the years, but my absolute biggest influence is, I think it's like 89, 90, it was Milton Bradley's Hero Quest.
Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of like, it was like a nice, simplified dungeon crawl. It was, you didn't have to memorize a book like Dungeons and Dragons, but, I had 14 quests, and you kind of had a dungeon master and stuff, but it was, light enough that you could reasonably play it and, learn it in the same night. Well, teach a bunch of friends in the same night. It took a while to learn, but
yeah.
I really should put that back in the print, because I would buy it for my kids.
Oh, I'd buy 2 copies of that.
Yeah,
right?
The game's amazing.
But the last page of that book, I got it when I was like 10 or 11. The last page was just this like blank quest, and that I just went crazy making my own quests. Like I made hundreds, and I was just running these game nights, and I was always like amping the rules and like changing things and tweaking this and trying this new thing out. I did that basically for like, almost 20 years. And, I was like an adult, and I was always making these RPG game systems that, were really far removed at that point, but that was kind of like the root kind of game that I based things off of. And then I had a friend drunkenly at a wedding after a bunch of free scotch one night. He's like, hey, you're always drinking and playing these homebrew systems that you're making. Why don't you actually incorporate beer into one of them? And then, I kind of thought on it for a few weeks. I'm like, wow, not only is that a good idea, but at that point, I'd already gone to school for business management, had all this experience. So I'm like, I think I can make a good game and, self-publish it in a way that'll actually work. So, it was about a year lead-up time. And, it's a lot of fun to have it out there and, give back to the scene. So I got way off topic there.
Oh, no, that's fine.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Hero Quest is the all-time favorite. And then a few other kind of obscure favorites. Fireball Island from when I was
a kid. Oh, my
God. Remember that?
Dude, you're hitting us right in the childhood. Yep.
Yeah,
Love it. Yeah, I was younger than Hero Quest, but that was one of my first tabletop games I really, really loved. That was a really cool game. Super expensive now, like $400 to find a copy of that.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And then my other all-time favorite is early 2000s, Lord of the Rings Risk Trilogy Edition.
Remember that? Yeah.
It was this huge Lord of the Rings-ified Risk game before like everything was Risk, and it was the great thing about this was that it was like a linear game, like it had an endpoint. So the Fellowship moved through territories, and then once it got to Mordor, the game ended, and it had like this point system. So that was those are my top 3 all time.
Nice.
And then lately, I've been playing a lot of Machi Koro and Lords of Waterdeep, and those are both excellent games.
See, I've been looking at Lords of Waterdeep and thinking about picking it up.
Oh, so good. Yeah, so worth it. Yeah, it looks pretty complicated, too. It was a lot easier to learn than I thought it would be. And, gameplay time's about an hour, so it's not too much of a time commitment.
No, that's not that bad at all.
No, it's not bad, yeah.
Yeah.
It's full of, like, D&D lore, so if you're into that stuff, there's a bunch of little, references and things to pick up, but you don't necessarily need to know that stuff, so...
It's just good if you're a fan, right? Just tickles you a little bit.
Yeah, like I didn't know a lot of that, but I played with this one guy, and he was explaining, like, every card, and he was like, oh, well, this character is a part of this trilogy, and this card was based off of this guy, and blah, 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 and he had a magic amulet, and, just going on and on.
Wow.
And, it's stuff that I didn't know, but I'm like, oh, it's fun that, there's so much depth, and, somebody put the thought in.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, wow, that sounds like somebody with an extensive knowledge of D&D there. Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah. Like you get these really hardcore people, and then I kind of think of myself kind of in the middle as like a hardcore casual. Like like I really love this stuff, but I tend, well, except for Hero Quest, I tend not to get terribly deep into it. So
right.
But yeah, and the Lord of the Rings Risk, that was another game. There was a year where I had 2 roommates, and we were all like on this weird evening shift where we'd all be home at like 11 p.m., but we wouldn't have to be up until like 11 a.m. the next day or something. And so from like 11 to 3 a.m. every third night for a year, we kept track of the scores. So we played a game of Lord of the Rings Risk. It was insane, and we kept like this master running score.
Oh wow!
So that was the other way. It wasn't a hardcore game. We never got any better at it. We just played it a lot. It was a lot of fun. So
that's awesome, though. Yeah, that's probably way more use than most people who own that game got out of it. So
yeah, absolutely. That's another one that goes for a lot on eBay now too. It's I have 2. I wouldn't sell either of my 2 copies because I have the original and then the one with the expansion. But it's everything's worn, and like you've got like whiskey stains on it and stuff like that. And, there's one guy the night where a friend like took a lighter and he thought he'd mount like a guy's head, and I'm like, no, dude, those are my pieces. Like, but now you look back and it's like, hey, battle scars. This is my game. This is great. So
it just gives us a character,
right?
Melted guy. He's like whiskey stains. Perfect.
And then, like, going back to, like, tabletop games, it's like, the best times I've ever had with tabletop games is, different points in your life, different things are happening. But sometimes you just have, like, this group that can get together pretty regularly. That's a good group. And if you can keep that for a long time, that's amazing. But I find throughout my life, it's like, I'll have kind of, spurts, a year at a time, a year or 2 here and there, on again, off again kind of thing. And it's, it's stuff I really love, but it's just, it's tough to get people together.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we try to do about a game night maybe once a month if we can, because it's like you said, it's just nice to get people together. Everyone's laughing, drinking, having a good time.
Absolutely.
Eventually forgetting rules and spilling shit all over the board, but it's all part of the fun of it.
Absolutely.
Because it looks like a Drinking Quest. Like it looks like the kind of game you could probably just pull out of I don't know if you have a satchel for some reason at the bar.
There are people at conventions that have satchels, absolutely.
But I could see you just pulling it out at a bar and playing it at like a high top table.
Yeah,
we've done that with like Love Letter. We'll throw it out in our pocket or something. We'll play it at the bar occasionally. Why not?
Yeah, Love Letter is a good size for sure.
Yeah.
It's I tried to keep the box as small as possible. Like it's like there's more like based on the contents. Like what the industry would normally do is like inflate the size of that box. Like double the size or something like that, and have like an insert that keeps everything together. But I was really specific about every game. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to size it exactly to the size of the cards and the dice and the character sheets and everything you need in there, just so it's as pub size as possible and people can bring it places, sort of thing.
Nice.
And again, it kind of works out at conventions too. It's people don't mind carrying something around that's a little bit smaller rather than bigger. So that's worked out pretty well. It doesn't stand out as much on store shelves, but it's the kind of thing that people tend to ask for and then kind of order ahead of time anyway. So it works out pretty well that way.
Right. Yeah, nice. Do you have any more expansions for it planned for the future, or is that all like secret information?
Well, next year I'm doing a Drinking Quest project, but it's not anything kind of the same as what's out there so far. I can say that much. And then I'm doing another completely non-Drinking Quest thing. No, I don't really have anything good to say right now. That's juicy information, I guess. Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
In like 2 months' time, I'll have tons to say. But yeah, I'm right in that process of like, okay, everything's getting done, and then I'm working with a developer now. So basically, once I design the game and write the game, and this goes here, and this is how it works, and then I have somebody who kind of an artist come in and just make everything kind of. Print ready and industry ready. I used to do all that development stuff myself, and I think I was good enough at it, but it was never really my strength. So I'm working with someone to do that, so that'll make everything kind of bigger and shinier. And then, again, it was the series had like different strengths kind of thing. So people liked it because it was funny and they wanted to know about the mashup and how things played out. So if I could get away with using some pretty like average Photoshop tricks and things like that. So
okay.
But for the future, everything's ramping up hardcore and starting to work with bigger teams, which is kind of cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, for
definitely.
sure. God damn it! I just had something to tip my tongue. I wanted to ask you. It's gone now. Oh, did you ever play any RPGs growing up too, or mostly just strictly tabletop games?
Yeah, I played mostly like video game RPGs, like Super Nintendo, like Final Fantasy 3/6, Chrono Trigger, stuff like that.
Right. Well, I love the Final Fantasy inspired logo for Drinking Quest.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for catching that.
Yes.
Really appreciate when people, instead of like a meteor coming out of the sky, it's like this huge pint of beer.
Yeah, it's perfect.
But it's
awesome.
subtle enough that a lot of people don't pick up on it, so it's pretty awesome. A guy did that out of the UK, Stuart Patterson, and I just pitched him this ridiculous parody logo, and yeah, he did a great job with that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great.
So yeah, it's what was the original question there? I kind of
No, if you'd have played RPGs, you just
The next thing I wanted to say was like right around that same area, like Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition was a pretty big deal. It was pretty popular, and I remember I played it a few times, like other people running games. I was always like, I really had this like air of mystique about it. I'm like, oh, this is so cool, but it was so complicated, and I ended up getting a book, and what I would do was I would just kind of take ideas from that and kind of simplify it and use the Hero Quest components. And basically I'd use it as, like a bit of alchemy to make my own games sort of thing. Being 11 or 12 or whatever I was at the time, it was usually just a bit too complicated to get, the groups I was hanging out with at the time into. So it was always nice to just make these accessible versions that, are a lot of fun and, have a lot of the big elements that are fun about it, but it doesn't like overload you with information and things like that. So, if you have a character sheet, it should be one page. Like that's usually a rule I had. So
I know that's why a lot of people avoided D&D at times, was because they'd hear the stories of somebody like, hey, we're all getting together to roll our characters up or whatever, and people like will just look at you like, like, wow, that's a lot of time put in. And I know it was at D&D, was it 4th edition or whatever it was, where they tried to make it like super simplified so people could just walk in and play, kind of a thing. Yeah,
it got a lot of flack for that. And then 5th edition, 5th edition is the one I played the most now, actually. I remember when that was about to come out, and I heard a guy ranting at Gen Con right before it came out. And I was playing Pathfinder with a friend, or with a group, but somebody else was running it, which was nice because I'm almost always the DM. But anyway, this guy was going on about D&D 5th edition, and he was just going on this rant about how incredible it's going to be, about how it like fixes all of these like, all of the technical balance and, the video game frame of mind that the 4th edition had. And it's like, it brings the imagination back. And I was like, oh shit, that sounds pretty awesome. I want to try this. And I bought all the core books when they came out. And then I ran a few game nights. I've done a few games of that, and it's been pretty amazing. But the absolute best game night I had was Anime North earlier this year. The guy who runs the gaming division, he's like, hey, do you want a booth here if you want to come out, if you run this all-night game of D&D for us? I was like, whoa, all night? It's like, yeah, it was like 9 to like 6 a.m. or something.
Right.
And I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, this sounds like a terrible idea. But, again, that's a convention I wanted to do. It's pretty tough to get into. I'm like, sure, yeah, sounds great. I'll do it. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to make this custom quest that uses, D&D 5th edition. And it ended up being a 9-hour quest in 3 acts about a band of heroes. It was like 7 heroes playing. A band of heroes that just needs to transport this cart full of lemons from point A to point B. And that was the hook, was the lemons. It was called the Fellowship of the Lemon Cart. And it's so in the first half an hour, you got people, stealing lemons and, throwing the cart down hills and, it's and trying to sell the lemons and doing all this stuff. And then from there, it just got better. And the crazy thing about this was that I didn't realize it was like, a quote-unquote celebrity game kind of thing. It was like there was an audience. There was like a room full of like maybe 50 people or something. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, man, I was kind of shocked. I was like, oh, how's this going to play out? And then, but just right away, everybody seemed to be into it. Like people would like laugh at the jokes and things that were supposed to be funny. And so it went so well that I started getting the audience like involved as like a god character that could like sort of influence the world.
Nice.
So they were Lemlor, the god of lemons. And it was a really fun night. And actually based off of that, starting in about a month's time, I'm doing a monthly podcast where I get a bunch of like funny players together, and then I DM it. We do an all-night D&D game. I said podcast. It's actually going to be a Twitch. And so we got a tech guy that's going to do the technical side, and everyone's going to be over Skype and have their own video and stuff like that. It's just going to go for a solid, 8 or 9 hours, and I'm going to make a bunch of silly 9-hour quests, and we're going to see how that goes. So,
Nice.
yeah, I'm really pumped about that.
Oh, that sounds cool, actually, yeah. I sat in for a little while when I was at Gen Con the one year because I don't sleep like most people do. And when I heard they were doing an all-night D&D game, I was going to play in it, and it filled up so fast. And I was like, well, and they were like, but it's open, you can come in and just check it out. So I was like, cool, and it wasn't funny though. It was somebody, doing real serious quests and stuff, but it was still amazing how there were a bunch of people standing around like paying attention to it. It blew my mind. I figured there'd be like 4 or 5 people, and there was probably 50 to 60, 70 people just standing there watching.
Everyone loves a good story, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I always stick to the funny stuff because one of the things I love about D&D is, and one of the things it's most criticized for is that, it's very, it's a lot of cliches and stuff like that. You got the warrior and you got the cleric and, it's, the dead marshes and, you got all these kind of generic, characters and settings and things like that. But that's what I love about it, that it's, it's very, low gimmick factor.
Mm-hmm.
It takes something that I like and then it works. But then on top of that, I love kind of subverting all those cliches and adding in just ridiculous stuff that goes against it. And I don't know, it just, it's usually, and, alcohol especially too. You add that into the mix, it's always a formula for a fun night.
Yeah, that sounds more like way more the type of D&D I would be into playing than playing it, like straight and such. So, yeah.
All right, well, yeah, if you see me tweeting about a convention that's close to where you are, whatever, you want to meet up, then by all means, it'd be a lot of fun.
All right,
cool. Perfect. The last time I played D&D, I think we spent more time in the pub, doing drinking competitions or getting in fights or just destroying furniture in general than we actually did questing.
Someone tried to pick up the waitress, of course. And then...
Of course, yeah.
Yep.
There's always that.
Yeah, with Drinking Quest, I tried to write it a little bit for that D&D player that just wants to sleep with everything. So there's just there's tons of just flippant sexual humor throughout the game. Like the characters always getting drunk and making bad decisions and like sleeping with each other, and not as like part of a game mechanic, but just kind of the flavor text story that can happen throughout the game.
Right.
So everyone's really drunk and naughty while they're playing Drinking Quest.
Awesome.
That's right up our audience's alley.
Yeah, right up our alley too. Yeah,
that's true too.
Yeah.
Drunk and naughty.
Yeah,
should be a tagline.
It sounds like a podcast. I don't know.
It's true.
All right. Well, I'm looking at the time here. It looks like we're getting pretty close. So, do you?
What the hell?
I don't know. Do you want to go ahead and promote like your website or anything like that to our listeners?
Oh, sure, yeah. DrinkingQuest.com has everything about Drinking Quest. You can pre-order Haiku Warrior from there. And there'll be an update soon with more Haiku Warrior stuff because that's about to come out. And then, if you want to follow me on Twitter, at Drinking Quest, that's my favorite social media thing when I'm also on Facebook. And I have a shitty Tumblr as well, but you don't need to go there. So, But yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. I just, drinking games. I was like, I got to reach out to this guy, see if he wants to talk.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to give the game a go because it sounds like a lot of fun, and it sounds like something we would play anyway, so there's no reason not to.
Yeah, that's my only regret, is not being able to play it first, but,
Yeah.
When you have your first game, tweet at me, let me know if it's the best night of your life, worst night of your life, however it plays out.
Absolutely.
Will do. Yep.
Or tweet at me during the game and then the next morning, and we'll see how those match up.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, sounds good.
All right, well, thanks again for joining us. So, again, folks, that's drinkingquest.com or at drinkingquest on Twitter. So, thanks a lot, Jason.
All right, have a good night, guys.
Right.
Cheers.
Yep,
You too.
See ya.
Bye.
Enthusiast this.